How you doing? I'm Charlie Sandlin. I am the executive director and the senior acting teacher at the Maggie Flanigan Studio. I'm sitting here with one of our first-year students, Thamer Jendoubi, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit because you have an interesting path here
Sure.
at the studio that I think is reflective on too many other students that are looking for places to train.
Mm-hmm.
You studied in London.
In England, sure.
In England,
yeah.
Right. And how long was the program?
It was 1 year. It was a 1 year master's.
A 1 year master's program.
Yeah.
So you went over there. You studied for a year, and then you came here to New York.
Correct.
Right.
I'm from New York originally.
Okay. So you came back home. There you go. And you found us through interest in a master class. Right. Is that
Yeah. Well, I knew that I wanted to take more classes when I got back to New York.
Right.
I mean, I knew about Maggie Flanigan Studio through its reputation. It's always voted, top studio in New York. And one of the teachers at the studio, Alberto Bonilla, actually came to the school. They brought him over to give us some film and TV technique. And we kind of taught. And when I learned that he teaches at the studio, I asked him, "What do you think? Is it a good studio?" He said, "Of course."
Right.
And I said, "What classes should I take?" And he said, "Why don't you try out the master class? You have to interview for it." And I said, "That sounds like a good idea." So when I got back, I set up an appointment with Maggie. We talked a little. She was like, "Are you Meisner trained?" I said, "Unfortunately not, but I had read the book. I had read his book."
I've got my master's though.
Exactly. Well, I didn't say that, but I told her, I'd read the book. I'd watched the DVD master class, so I was a little bit familiar with it. She was a bit reluctant, but she liked me.
Right.
So luckily, she took a chance on me, and so then I started the master class with her.
So the master class, it's a 10-week class. It's for professional actors that have training. So you found yourself in a master class. And
Yes.
It's a scene study, and you're working with Maggie. And so what was happening to you in that class that changed something?
Okay. It became obvious very quickly that I wasn't going to learn anything in that class. Not because Maggie's not a great teacher, because she is, but I realized that she was asking me to do things that I couldn't do. And to clarify,
Probably didn't know how to do.
that I didn't know how to
do.
exactly
Right.
that I didn't know how to do yet.
Right.
And like many actors, I kind of thought I had a way of working, which was not a real way of working. And
So you'd probably be doing table work, right?
right, we would do table work.
So like, what would she say to you? And that would cause you to go.
Well, the thing is, my way of working is kind of line reading, all these bad habits.
What most actors do.
True.
Like,
A lot of actors kind of say, "I want to say this line this way," and that's what I was doing. And many a time, I would do a scene, and I'd be like, "I nailed that line. I'm so good." And I was kind of like waiting for her to give me good feedback.
Yeah.
And I knew deep down that it wasn't good acting, but I thought I was good enough to fool people.
You're working on your ouches.
Exactly.
What most actors do, how many different ways can I say the ouch?
Sure.
Forget the pinch.
Exactly.
Don't care about that.
Yeah. I wasn't worried about my partner. Wasn't worried. They could do whatever they want, and I would do it the same way, which is not truthful. It's not real. And she kind of saw right through me in a way that no other teacher has really ever done, and I knew that I wanted to train here because the standards are so high here that you know what I mean?
Well, that's interesting what you just say, that she saw right through you in a way that no other teacher had. What do you mean by that? I mean, that's an interesting thing to say.
Well, it was never, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. It could always be better. I'll put it that way.
Sure.
Many
it wasn't
teachers,
like, "Hey, good job."
Exactly. It was maybe what she'd be like, better.
On the right track.
Exactly, on the right track. But I've had a lot of acting teachers in my life, and some of them would just say, "Good, that was good," meaning good enough, but not really a lot of notes to go with it. But with Maggie, there was always.
So was she asking you what's your action here? What are you doing? What's your?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
fun. I mean, it's embarrassing to say this now, but she expected us to have a way of working, which I didn't have. So before every scene, we would go outside to emotionally prepare, and literally what I would do.
The previous circumstance.
Exactly, and I had heard of that. I mean, I kind of worked it out, but I wasn't really emotionally preparing because I didn't know how. Yeah. So I would literally just be walking around thinking about what I had for dinner or some nonsense, and just kind of go in and, you know, wing it.
Wing it.
Yeah.
Wing it. Right.
So
okay. So you got through the master class.
I did.
And then you made a big decision, which is kind of what I think, you know, a lot of people that are looking for training might have this kind of experience. You now are in first year.
I am.
You're in my class. You are one of my students.
Yeah.
And I think it's courageous, you know, and it says something about you as an artist and what's important to you. And you know, I'm just curious now, having been in, you know, you started in the January class, so we've been together now, what, 2 months?
Yeah.
2.5. We just got done with our first round scenes. What's been your experience now?
Well, I guess I've learned a lot about myself. I was really, in the past, kind of not worried about, you know, my temperament or, you know, me as a human being, whereas now I'm learning a lot about myself, what makes me tick, what I like, what I don't like. In my personal life, I'm a pretty laid back, nonchalant type of person. I don't let things affect me, and maybe it's a defense mechanism, maybe I'm just like that, I don't know. But I've found that since I've started, in my personal life, things are starting to affect me more. I'll kind of ask myself, how do I feel about that? I don't like that. That makes me feel good. You know, so it's nice to get in touch with, you know, your feelings.
It's interesting because, you know, actors, they have sometimes a misconception about what the art form is.
Right.
You know, and that, you know, if you really want to, it's a question of how many shoes do you want to step into? How many human beings do you want to illuminate? And when you're looking at a script, you've got to be able to identify with the character, with the material. And
Absolutely.
the only way you can do that is by knowing what has meaning for you.
Exactly, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I've heard this analogy said before, whereas a lot of actors, I might mess this up, but the saying is a lot of actors they think acting is putting on a mask and going around and say, I'm this. But in a way, it's taking off a mask and showing, you know, the audience, whoever you're working for, whoever you're performing for, you know, who you are. You bring yourself to the part rather than conforming the part to, you know. Does that make sense?
Well, it's the difference between being a real actor and what I'll call meat and potato actors,
Sure.
right? A meat and potato actor, to me, is somebody who always is bringing the part to themselves. Do you know what I mean? So that no matter what the material is, it's all going to be filtered through my own pedestrian, normal, everyday life. It's a lot of movie stars, a lot of celebrity. That's it. You know, you stick this actor in 10 different films, it's the same. But real actors, they bring themselves to the part.
Absolutely, and you just remind me of something else. One of the reasons that for a long time I thought I was a good actor, and I'm sure a lot of other people think they're good actors, is because they have what you call conversational reality. Meaning, I can take this script and kind of say it to you in a way that if someone was walking by, they'd be like, oh, it's just two guys talking. But they're not living through it, you know what I mean? So I learned, you know, pretty recently that that's not what makes a good actor. You know, anyone can do that.
Well, you know, I think if you want to play major parts, right, and which I assume is what most actors want. You know, you're not training to be an under five or a spear carrier, right? If you want to be able to do Eugene O'Neill or Tennessee Williams or David Mamet, you know, the things that you have to live through, right, on stage 8 shows a week or on set 10, 15, 20 takes. Most people in their life experience, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times.
Right.
Deep joy, real murderous rage, despair, humiliation, searing embarrassment. Well, I mean, if the character is enraged, the character is humiliated, well, who has to be those things?
You have to be those things.
Yeah. So it's about, you know, do you want to be an organic actor? Do you want to be a truthful actor that's really experiencing something? Because I think that's how the audience.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, they live through.
You know? So, so what do you know about acting now that you didn't know 3 months ago? Let's say.
It's a good question. I mean, what we've. I think the main thing.
Because there's so much more you don't even know yet.
Yeah.
It's exciting, right? Like, there's so much more coming to
Absolutely.
you.
I mean,
even in just this short time.
I think in terms of specifics, the way of working that we've just been taught in the scenes mainly to memorize the scene by rote, because as I mentioned before, a lot of actors work in that they will say, they'll see the script, they'll say, I want to say this line this way to get my point across.
Sure.
And when you memorize it by rote, meaning when you memorize it without any particular nuances or any inflections on purpose, anything like that, just memorize it blandly, so you know the line, you can work off of your partner organically, truthfully. And I honestly used to work that, and partners would tell me, even last year at school, people would tell me, you're doing it the same way every time. And I would always, it's like you told us, when you don't know what's happened in the scene you just did, then you're on the right track. I always used to know exactly what I did in my work. Yeah, I hit that line right there. I'm such a good actor, but it's not what good acting is.
It's very easy to get caught in results, and doing a good scene or working for that, but to work for the process, and that's really what you're gonna get here. A technique,
sure,
which is probably what you didn't have coming out of that master's program, like a way of working, approaching material every time with an instrument that's developed.
I think every actor is different. I think, and 2 years ago when I was applying for these programs, I thought I was so kind of not obsessed, but I was really into this notion of like having a big name school on my resume, and I thought that in order to be taken seriously, I needed that. And in order to be taken seriously, you do need to have good training. Sure.
You really do.
And I mean, in the same way that you can be a bad actor coming out of a good school, like a Juilliard or a Yale. You can have well, that's not necessarily no training, but I mean, you can go to something that's not as well known. Maggie's obviously very well known in New York City and the East Coast, from what I understand, but you just need to find the program that's right for you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm glad I found it, because I think Maggie's is it, and it has been for a lot of people.